Did you see that? Let me play it one more time to see if you caught what happened. You might be thinking, seems normal. Just looks like Mario doing a kick. But this kick is not a regular kick. This is called a speed kick. If you don't know how Mario movement works, there's only two main buttons. You have A and B, and Z and R, but A and B are basically how you do moves. A is typically the jump, B is the punch. B could be a kick, or if you're going fast enough, B becomes a dive. But this is why it's called a speed kick. If you have a lot of speed and you do the right inputs, you can kick instead of dive when you have a lot of speed. To do a speed kick, as Mario is landing from either a long jump or most typically a rollout, and he has all that speed, while holding A and holding neutral and pressing B, at the right time, you can get a kick instead of a dive. And this has all sorts of really cool uses, like being able to conserve your speed that you have, being able to then tie it into a big double jump. There are many applications of a speed kick. So, in the grand scheme of things, speed kicking isn't that old of a technique. This is actually some cool info you might not know about. For a long time, everyone thought that the BLJs were discovered in the year 2000. However, Midori SM64 tweeted almost 2 years ago showing a Japanese strategy guide published in 1996 showing BLJs, the same year the game came out. It wouldn't be until 2010, 14 years later, until runners discovered speed kicking, and it was discovered by accident. A member of the community named Anna Vrins made a free run TAS, which is basically just playing the game frame by frame. You can do whatever you want. It's how very crazy things are done in the game. Accidentally discovered the speed kick. The first recorded instance of a speed kick being used in a world record was Siglemic's 70-star world record of 49.09, achieved November 20th, 2012. Although it didn't really do much for him here, in fact it probably lost him time, it showed that a human could pull off a speed kick in a run. Here is a not so successful attempt of a speed kick from Siglemic's 144.01, which was achieved January 21st, 2013. This little clip shows that runners, at least Siglemic, the best runner at the time, didn't know a crucial aspect about speed kicks. I'm going to come back to this in a second. An actually very practical use from Siglemic was shown in his 120-star world record of 143.53, achieved on April 22nd, 2014, where he does it at the end of, at the time, the new Womps 100 coin route, allowing him to get a big enough double jump to just barely clip up onto this hill and get the remaining coins for the 100 coin star. And this technique was largely unused by every player, unless it was for single-star attempts, as the sentiment from most players was it didn't seem worth it, as it didn't seem super necessary most of the time, or most of the time you wouldn't get a very good speed kick, so it didn't really save time. But as the old saying goes, you don't know what you don't know. Coming back to what I mentioned earlier, players learned something very interesting about the speed kick. Anna Vrins actually had already known this back in 2010, however, this wasn't common knowledge. But instead of having to hold neutral for the kick, you can hold ESS position. If you don't know what ESS position is, it's a reference to Ocarina of Time's ESS, which is an extended super slide, or Hess, hyper-extended super slide, in which holding the control stick just ever so slightly off of neutral allows Link to slide out of a bomb explosion. So once runners learned that you could hold ESS instead of just holding neutral, it made speed kicks not only easier to do because you had more wiggle room, it prevented Mario from completely stopping. If you failed the speed kick, he would just do a little walk or just a slower speed kick. And now you could hold the stick maybe a little bit left if you wanted your speed kick to go a little bit left or a little bit right. And it's still hard to do, but it was a lot more possible. Unfortunately, I don't really have the exact moment that this was found out. This was kind of one of those things that spread word of mouth from player to player. I myself didn't know that you could do that with a speed kick for many years. I want to say probably not until maybe 2016, 2017, but it's hard to know when the majority of players knew. But nowadays, in 2023, you see top runners doing speed kicks all over the place. They make it easier to get big double jumps, and in some situations, in terms of spacing, they are the perfect move to use. As players get better at the game, Their abilities improve, and thus they're able to do more hard, complicated strats that previously people thought were impossible or inconsistent. A great example nowadays is Tsukushima Cycle. It's done by runners in 16 star, 70 star, 120 star. It is the fastest way to get all of the red coins in Dark World, and it basically requires a speed kick here to make a very short jump to build into the triple jump wall kick off of this slope. You could in theory do a single jump if you're fast enough, but the speed kick makes it much easier to make the time in. All this talk about hot techniques and players getting good and doing stuff fast might make you think, well, is that it? And the answer is, I don't really know, but I have a couple ideas, at least one idea of a technique that every runner knows about. Maybe not every runner, but most runners know about, but no one does in runs. This technique is called a front flip, or at least that's what I call it. It's actually a side flip, but you do it forwards. In fact, if you do it right, you can do a side flip in any direction. However, the inputs for it are very, very tough, very tight, and very hard to replicate. However, that's what runners thought about speed kicks at one point. They're used all over the place in task gameplay. However, we're yet to see them being used in runs. So, you know, just sitting here on my armchair, just kind of groping the chair, just, you know, touching on the chair. I don't know why I'm saying any of this, but thinking about it, if I had to guess any direction where Mario's gonna go next in terms of expanding on the movement and the possibilities, a front flip mastery would allow a player to speed up in a lot of spots. I can't really give you a list of that at the moment because it's hard to imagine, but I do believe that that is a very real possibility in the future that we will see in runs at some point. And I hope you have a good day, and thank you for watching.